odd years. So the problem is much more than what Mr. Modi is trying to do in Kashmir right now.
But have Mr. Modi's actions and the actions of his government in Kashmir further worsened the problem?
It's a mixed bag, really. On one hand, you have amended the Article 370, which was in any case meant to be a temporary measure. Standing in the heart of Srinagar, long time ago, just a few years before his death, India's first prime minister, who nobody can accuse of being anti-Muslim or anti-Kashmir, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru said this much to the Kashmiri society, that this measure was permanent, was temporary. But now the other way of looking at it is also, after the amendment, there have been lockdowns, internet shutdowns, and one thing which I keep on saying is that the Indian state has been fighting this war in Kashmir against Islamist extremists, aided and abetted by our neighbor for the last 30 years. But even after 30 years, if the only measure of the success of your counterinsurgency doctrine is the fact that you're killing young militants, young terrorists every now and then I think there's some part of failure in that counterinsurgency doctrine.
Never easy answers in relation to Kashmir, but we'll leave it there for the time being. Rahul Pandita, thank you so much for joining us today. And the new uptick in violence in the Kashmir Valley adds to the woes of residents of this Muslim-majority region. Many have had to bear not just attacks from militants, but also heavy-handed countermeasures adopted by security forces. DW correspondent Manira Chaudhary reports.
Every few days, Tabassum takes out family albums to look at the pictures of her husband Sajjad. He has been in jail for 4 months now. He's being held under the Public Safety Act, or the PSA, a law which allows for detention without charges for up to 2 years. It is the first time Sajjad has been booked under this law, but not the first time that he has been detained.
We're always in this uncertain state where we don't know when he can be called by the police. They'll call him and lock him up around important dates, and even when some VIP is visiting.
Sajjad's family believes he's being targeted because his elder brother has been involved in protests against the Indian administration for years. Such stories are not unique. People in this disputed region have been caught in the crossfire between militants and security forces for decades. A recent uptick in militancy has increased their sense of fear. Dozens of civilians from minority groups have been targeted in terrorist attacks. Locals fear that harsh measures like interrogations and arbitrary detentions will increase again in an attempt to control the growing militancy.
The security force presence is high. Anybody can be stopped anywhere. Any police or security officer, or any gunman for that matter, can enter your house at any time. The sense of security that one should have, that nothing will happen to them if they have not done anything wrong, is not here.
Lawyer Mir Urfi says laws like the PSA have been used indiscriminately in the past. She and her husband are fighting several cases on behalf of people detained under the law. Tabassum's husband's cause has also been taken on by the legal couple. His long detention has been hard on the family. Tabassum is not sure when she'll be able to see her husband again.
I feel worried and lonely. These 4 months feel like 4 years. I've never felt this way the whole 10 years that I've been married. The kids are also missing him so much. They're crying for him.
The tense situation in Kashmir has brought fear and uncertainty, with the highest price being paid by civilians.
Tensions have been on the boil in recent weeks in neighboring Bangladesh as well after mobs attacked minority Hindu temples and homes. The communal violence was prompted by allegations that the Quran had been disrespected in a Hindu temple. The violence that followed claimed at least 7 lives.
Commandeering a major intersection in the Bangladeshi capital, Dhaka's Hindus forcing others to take notice of their grievance. Why are the Hindu religious minorities being attacked under the rule of a non-sectarian secular government? This is simply unacceptable. Today, we've organized a human chain and protest event at Shabak. If the government fails to take any action, we'll declare tougher movements that will bring the state to a halt. The protest was angry but remained peaceful, like others by Hindus across the country in the following days. They were protesting the killings of Hindu devotees. Images posted online of a Quran allegedly placed on a Hindu statue sparked mob violence. Several Hindu temples were vandalized. The anti-Hindu violence spilled over into the streets of Dhaka, with thousands of angry Muslims clashing with police. Why was our Quran at the feet of an idol? That's why we are protesting. Quran belongs to all of us. We cannot tolerate the desecration of the Quran. We call on the government to arrest those who desecrated the Quran by putting it at the feet of an idol in Kumilla and give them the death sentence. There is no alternative to this. Experts place much responsibility for the violence at the door of the government and justice system.
If you look at all the incidents, the primary responsibility lies with the government to protect the religious places, to protect the religious communities. The government failed in many cases. The most striking thing is all the incidents which took place in last 10 years, in none of the incidents, the trial has been conducted finally. The trial has not been completed.
In a part of the world where sectarian violence is rising, in Bangladesh too, religious minorities face a constant threat and they fear for their safety.
That's it for today. There's, of course, more on our website, dw.com/Asia, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. We're back tomorrow at the same time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
The fight against the coronavirus pandemic. How has the rate of infection been developing? What does the latest research say? Information and context. The Coronavirus Update, the COVID-19 special. Next on DW.
Imagine how many portions of lunch are thrown out in the world right now.
Climate change is only half the story. This is my plastic waste from just 1 week. How much worse can it really get? We still have time to act.
I'm going all in.
This success. Hit subscribe for more videos like this. Ding.
India's festive season is underway as millions of people gather for religious festivals, often without any protective measures against COVID-19. Health experts fear these mass gatherings could turn into super spreader events.
I can find many people are moving without a mask. They are not maintaining the social distancing.
I am feeling happy. Though the crowd is excessive, I am sweating like hell, but still I am enjoying.
Same time last year, infection numbers spiked with hundreds of thousands of new cases each day.
I'm Ben Fazul, nice to have you along. Anyone who's been to India knows festivals mean masses of people, and with it, a risk of infections spreading. After a brutal second wave and a bumpy vaccination rollout, close to a third of the population is now fully vaccinated. that's enough for many in India to join in the festivities.
The victory of good over evil. That is one of the key themes around the Hindu festivals of Dussehra and Diwali. And these Delhi residents are clamoring to leave the evil of the coronavirus behind. Celebrations are meant to be low-key. This is the only traditional Dussehra performance allowed in the capital this year. And the audience is strictly limited. But that isn't holding these crowds back. Nor are people shying away from busy festive markets. Restrictions in shopping districts have been lifted completely. And COVID-appropriate behavior isn't being enforced. For many here, their confidence stems from the vaccine.
I've gotten my second dose, so now I feel a lot more comfortable about being in public places.
The cases are low right now, so our hopes are high, and vaccinations are going well.
For the lucky few who have been allowed into performances like this one, it is the closest they've felt to normalcy since the pandemic began.
I think more excited than scared, because it's been such a long time that we've been able to do anything like this.
I miss the crowds, the food stalls and the swings, but I'm still really glad we got to attend this.
The head of the Delhi government also reinforced a message of hope.
I pray that we defeat the demon of the coronavirus soon, that God keeps all of you healthy and free of disease.
As Lord Ram kills the demon king Ravan, the euphoric crowds momentarily forget about the pandemic. But it may yet be a long wait till the threat of the coronavirus too goes up in flames.
Rajiv Dasgupta joins us now. He heads the Centre for Social Medicine and Community Health at JNU in Delhi. Nice to have you on the show again. As we saw there, celebrations underway and people having a great time. But tell me, what do you think? Only around 30% fully vaccinated. How risky is that for these people?
Hello, Ben. The visuals of the Durga Puja that we saw, particularly if we talk of West Bengal, which has certainly witnessed a rise in cases, the outcome of that surge would depend on an interplay of two things. The zero prevalence, the zero positivity in West Bengal by the last 4th National Zero Survey, which is relatively low at about 61%, and coverage with 2 vaccines, which is also relatively low at about 27%. So a state like West Bengal, with both the parameters being low, would certainly be at additional risk. What could perhaps be protective, and that's something we would be able to gauge fully in the coming weeks, is how much protection a single dose of vaccine is according, because West Bengal has about 72% coverage with a single dose. And that would really entail what proportion would actually fall sick from the COVID and how much this current surge would last.
So where would you put the likelihood of another surge of cases then?
Given the very high levels of seropositivity in most Indian states, and in fact, the more recent ones which have come out in the last 2 weeks, state-specific ones, actually show that seroprotection is pretty high as a combination of both vaccination as well as disease, both clinical disease and asymptomatic disease. So that's protective presently. But should there be a new variant, or particularly a new highly transmissible variant, that could certainly change the complexion of the game.
And what role might natural immunity play now that so many Indians have caught the coronavirus?
Well, cases are currently at a low of about 12,000 to 13,000. The deaths may seem a bit disproportionately high compared to the new cases, but that's because several states have reviewed the data, reconciled the death data, and therefore there have been some new death notifications, but they are not new deaths, so to say. So therefore, at present, it's seemingly a comfortable situation, but that owes a lot to the high seropositivity.
And we heard in that report a confident young man saying that lots of people have now been vaccinated. I mean, we're talking about what you said, 27%, 30%. And India recently administering its 1 billionth coronavirus jab. I mean, are people getting overconfident?
The 1 million jab is certainly a very creditable feat. I think what we need to be worried about is roughly half a dozen to 8 states which are below the national average. These are very large states with very large populations. One of the largest states, Uttar Pradesh, for example, has 20% of the population covered with 2 doses. A state with high incidence, Maharashtra, which has Mumbai city in it, has a coverage of 32% with 2 vaccines. So these are the states that we need to look out for. On the other hand, the states which have really had high coverage, above 50% and nearly 60% in some of the smaller states. So it's a very mixed picture. We really need to keep a lookout for some of these very large states.
Rajib, one thing that India hasn't been battling is vaccine hesitancy. A lot of countries are struggling with that. Why is India doing so well in getting people to actually take the vaccine?
We need to give credit to perhaps 2 things. One, certainly the forthright conviction of the present government in putting its full weight in the vaccination program. But secondly, what we also need to pay tribute to is a systematic strengthening of the immunization program in the context of polio eradication. And this current phase of strengthening or systematically strengthening has been going on for the last 2 decades, once the 2000 milestone for polio eradication was missed. So the current the current campaign has come on very strong fundamentals, and that's what is really paying dividends. It isn't that there haven't been cases of hesitancy, but the campaign has also been proactive about it. But we certainly need to recognize the strong fundamentals.
Rajib Dasgupta from JNU, thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Another viewer question now from Derek Williams, and this time a question on the COVID-19 vaccine.
Why do I need a COVID-19 vaccine if it doesn't prevent me from catching the disease?
I think that this question, more than any other, illustrates how governments and healthcare authorities have really struggled with messaging in this pandemic. To answer it, let's go back over some of the stuff that they could have probably communicated better. First, I think, is the fact that despite really great efficacy numbers from clinical trials, the vaccines that we have are not perfect silver bullets, and we should never have expected them to be. What they have so far proved to provide is some very effective short-term protection from serious illness and death caused by COVID. It would be great if that protection were indefinite, but there are indications that it might be less long-term than we'd hoped. One recent model-based study that's gotten some attention posits that if SARS-CoV-2 becomes endemic, then reinfection in people who got it once could on average occur again in just 16 months. Now, if correct, that obviously has implications for durability of immune response in vaccinated people as well. But that's just one prediction, and over the course of this pandemic, right. So I would encourage people to focus more on what we really do know now, like the crystal clear data-based statistics published by the CDC in the US. They've showed that although vaccines haven't prevented COVID-19 or its spread completely there, unvaccinated people are still 5 times more likely to test positive for the disease than vaccinated.